Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Wendy, and today I'm going to be talking about which state is better, Washington or Colorado. I'm a little nervous to be making this because I have some very opinionated friends and family that may or may not be watching, but I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible. If you don't know me, I was born and raised in a town like 25 minutes outside of Seattle called Renton. I just tell people I'm from Seattle because it's easier, and I lived there 18 years, and then I moved out to Fort Collins, Colorado in 2015 to go to college, and I've lived here now 5 years. I was in college for 4, and I've lived here another year after, and I'll be moving to Boston, Massachusetts in the fall, so maybe one day I'll make a video about which one's better compared to Massachusetts, but I picked 5 categories. They are location, weather, food, activities, and I guess demographics. So I'm gonna start with the most mundane of all the topics, which is location. We'll start with Colorado. So to the north is Wyoming, to the east is Kansas, south is New Mexico, and west is Utah. Of those states, let's just be honest, 3 of them are complete trash. Utah is the only one that has anything of merit because of all the national parks. I went there once junior year with Nick for like a camping trip, and it was super fun. So Utah is something, but not really much going for it as far as like what borders Colorado. And we have lots of access to mountains and like the city, but no ocean. So that's Colorado. And then Washington, our borders south are Oregon, which is awesome, just like another version of Washington. To the east is Idaho, which like, you know, kind of like another nothing state. They have mountains though, and they have Boise, so that's pretty good. And then to the north of Washington, you have Canada, a whole nother country that offers maple syrup and Canadian bacon. And we have access to the ocean, mountains, and the city. Washington wins location. So that is 1 point towards Washington. I think we could all agree. I will say Wyoming is a pretty cool state to live next to. Southern Wyoming has nothing to it, but northern Wyoming obviously has Yellowstone. But again, it's just super far away. It's like 7 hours. So Washington wins location. Next, we'll do weather. I'll start with Colorado again. Basically, Colorado has like 365 days of sun. There are definitely cloudy days, like today's a cloudier day, but sun is pretty much guaranteed all throughout the year, which is really awesome. We also have 4 seasons. There's a very distinguishable fall, winter, spring, summer, so that's really nice. I realize I really want that wherever I decide to settle down and like start a family. I'd like to live somewhere that has 4 seasons. Another factor is Colorado's range in temperature is very extreme. So during the fall, winter days, the low can be as low as 10 or 20, and the high can be in the 60s. So our temperature range can be like over 40 degrees for the day, and our winters and summers are a lot more extreme. So summertime, I would say in Fort Collins, the hottest it normally gets is in the 90s, and that's not too common, but it definitely gets there. And the winters, we get a lot of snow. It'll like dump for a couple days, and then it'll be sunny and melt it all. Colorado doesn't get too much rain, but we do have a really nice springtime where we get a lot of thunderstorms, which helps make things green for like the summer and fall time. So that's really nice. Moving on to Washington, it is a misconception that it rains all the time in Washington. I think that is untrue, but I will say that I think 300 out of the 365 days, it is cloudy. I think that's the misconception, is that more often than not, especially in Seattle, it's cloudy, it's not raining. So we probably have like a solid 2 months of like summer or sun. We have a really beautiful fall. I would honestly say fall is probably the nicest season in Washington because it's sunny, it gets warm. We have beautiful colors, probably more beautiful than Colorado, even though Colorado has aspen trees. Washington has maple trees. So I would also add that Washington does not have distinguishable seasons. I would say we probably have a solid 2 seasons. We have like a fall, winter, and then a spring, summer, if you can even say that. They all kind of blend together because our temperature range is very, very small. So for a normal day in Washington, the low will be like 40 and the high will be 55. So it's a very short window of like temperature difference, which is why I think everything kind of blends together. And then our winters are less harsh. We don't get nearly as much snow unless you're near the mountains. And our summers are a lot more mild. I would say for Washington, it often gets in the 80s when we're having a really good summer, but I think it's very rare that we get into the 90s, or it's like a rare year where we get summers so hot that it's in the 90s. As far as weather goes, I'm gonna give this point to Colorado because Colorado has more days of sunshine. We have very distinguishable seasons. The temperature range, although extreme, it does offer for a nice bit of change. Things don't get as boring. Although I will say personally, sometimes the sun gets a little monotonous to me. Like the clouds and rain does for people in Washington. So weather point goes to Colorado. Next category up is food. Now this one I'm a bit more biased in. I have an opinion about this one. I would argue that Colorado has a lot more genuine and authentic Mexican food. I think just by nature of the location being closer to the border, I think we have better like salsa and peppers and like hot spicy foods. However, Washington has a lot more access to really authentic seafood, which I think is just very difficult to beat. I would just say Washington, being on the ocean and being a coastal state, has far better seafood. We have access to like fish and clams and squid if you want, just like all kinds of things, whereas Colorado has access to none of that. I definitely value seafood more than I do Mexican food. But then I guess zooming out from those two categories, I would say both Colorado and Washington have access to like a bunch of really good restaurants. It's just kind of a matter of what you prefer. Another thing is that Colorado has really weird grocery stores to me, because growing up, here's my bias, growing up in Washington, I grew up with like QFC and Safeway and Albertsons and Fred Meyer's. That is another thing. I think Washington has to win the food category because they have Fred Meyer's and Colorado does not, and that makes me very sad because Fred Meyer's is like a much classier version of Walmart. Everyone here in Colorado shops at Walmart, and I'm sorry to say that, but I hate Walmart. Like, it's literal trash. And so yeah, food category to Washington. Next category we're gonna do is activities. This one I'm pretty torn on. I was talking about this with a friend the other day. So I would argue that in both Washington and Colorado, you can do all of the same things, which I really like. And I feel like a lot of snobby Coloradans think that Colorado's the best state ever because they have really good skiing and snowboarding. So does Washington. Washington, you can ski, you can snowboard, you can hike, you can kayak, you can paddleboard, you can run, you can walk, you can do like all these different activities, you can rock climb. And you can do all of those in Colorado as well. Something interesting about the population, I would say, and this has to do with activities, is that Coloradans are wimps in the rain. If it's raining, they're like, I'm miserable, I'm not leaving the house, don't want to bother with it. And Washingtonians, I feel like, love the sun, really appreciate it. I feel like they'll get outside as often as they can, but the constant rainy weather has a negative effect on what times of the year you can do all of these activities. So for example, in Colorado, you can go rock climbing like year round because it's always sunny. Even when it's like snowy out, I don't know if that's safe or if people really do that, but a lot of people go rock climbing year round. Also like snowboarding and skiing, that season starts like well into October, November, and will go all the way till May. Whereas I feel like Washington, our ski snowboard season is a bit more like October, November, December to like maybe March. I feel like April people stop skiing, whereas in Colorado, April is actually a really good month for that. This category I'm really torn on, and you guys can let me know what you think, but I'm gonna give the activities to Colorado because although you can do both in both states, I think in Colorado you can do all of those things more often year round. So I don't know, that one's kind of up in the air. And then the last category I'm going to do is demographics. This one I'm gonna keep a little shorter because I don't really wanna get into politics, but Washington is a blue state. Colorado tends to be purple and swings either direction. I think just by nature of Washington being on the coast, there's a greater like diversity of people, given that we're very close to California and Oregon, also Hawaii and Alaska. So I think the Asian Pacific population is a lot greater in Washington. I'm absolutely certain that's true. Whereas in Colorado, I think the greatest proportion of people that are not Caucasian are Hispanic. Yeah, I don't want to speak too much on this because as you guys can tell, I don't know that much. I haven't really done my research, but I guess the argument I'm making is that Washington, I would say Western Washington is very liberal, whereas Eastern Washington is a lot more conservative. And in Colorado, it's more like northern central Colorado is very liberal and southern Colorado is a bit more conservative. So I would say both states, they're both squares, but Washington has that little like arm on the edge. Both states have different populations of people and backgrounds. So I'm gonna say they're tied in that realm. I believe location and food go to Washington, and then weather and activities goes to Colorado. So with that being a tie, I'm going to give my personal opinion right now, and that is, and I'm really torn because I've thought about this a lot, I think it is more fun to be a young person in Washington because I think you are more likely to meet a greater diversity of people that are different from you, and that's coming from someone that lived very close to Seattle. Obviously, and if you're in Spokane, Washington, or Eastern Washington, I think that's a little less likely, but you have a closer access to Canada. Oregon is a really cool state. The food is great. I think Washington is a really wonderful place to be a young person. There's so many things to do outdoors, just like the list goes on. But from my experience living in Colorado, I think Colorado might be a better place to raise a family. And I guess I'm sad to admit this, but I've realized after living in Colorado that waking up to the sunshine every day really does kind of boost my spirit. And I like to think that the weather doesn't impact my mood, but having lived here, I really enjoy the 4 different seasons, and the sun has really been an aid in my motivation and mental well-being when I've gone through really hard things personally. I would say Washington is a better place to be a young person, and Colorado might be a better place to start a family and like settle down. So let me know what you guys think. This was just a fun video I realized I wanted to make because I love Washington and Colorado. Like, I would almost say equally. They are just very different chapters of my life. And I will say, for all of you that are upset with me for what I've said, Washingtonians and Colorados are very stuck up. Everyone that I talk to thinks that Washington and Colorado are the best states. They're like, I could live here the rest of my life. I don't have any need to live elsewhere. And I'm like, y'all need to leave and live somewhere else, because I feel like preconceived notions people have about Colorado or Washington are just from negative experiences they've had here. I would encourage any of you that are interested in moving or living in different places. Washington and Colorado are both great places to be. I have loved living in both. They've just taught me and offered me very different things. And honestly, I would live in Washington again. And after I'm done living in Boston, Massachusetts, I would probably live in Colorado again. So let me know what you guys think. I'm very interested to see if people like this video. You should comment down below your thoughts. If you disagree with me, let's have a conversation. And you should subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.